Good evening, everyone. Calling to order our special meeting this evening. I have no separate announcements for this evening, except for the fact that Stephanie, you're going to go through our 2026 budget, the highlights of 25 and 26. And
that is correct.
all right, so let's get right into the presentation. So,
all right.
Go ahead, Steph.
Okay. So my name is Stephanie Cecco. I am the Borough Manager in Conshohocken. I'm here this evening to present the proposed 2026 budget. We are going to go through the budget process. We'll hit some department accomplishments from 2025 so you can understand what went on over the course of this fiscal year. Then we'll go into a proposed budget overview for 2026. That will expand upon the budget workshop we have in September annually. We'll do an explanation of revenue sources, budget highlights, and then 2026 department goals, and then end with next steps in the process. So our budget timeline, what does that look like over the course of the fiscal year? So we start our budget process in July. We submit capital budget requests. We go over council goals, and they all get compiled into a capital packet for the proposed 2026 budget. Over the course of August and September, we go over operational budget requests for our general fund. We have meetings and we review those expenditures. We present all of those capital and operational expenses that are proposed to Borough Council at a special budget workshop that is in September. We do an administrative review based off any feedback we get from the public or Borough Council over the course of October. And then in November, I formally present the proposed budget. It is then on your agenda at the end of November at your voting meeting for authorization to advertise along with the tax levy resolution or ordinance. And then it'll be back on your agenda on December 17th for consideration for adoption. So that is what the timeline looks like. It really starts in July and ends in September. And it's a process and an exercise that we all go through collectively. So every year in the beginning of the budget process, we evaluate historical data pertaining to our general fund revenues and expenditures over a 5-year comparative period. The chart on the screen illustrates the borough's revenues over expenditures from 2020 to 2024. So if you look on the screen, the blue column are your revenues, the orange column are your expenditures. And so for purposes of the report, I'll just note that when we're doing this comparison, we do remove any interfund transfers. So annually we take money from the general fund and we put it into your reserve funds, and any one-time major expenditures that will not occur again on an annual basis. So last year, for example, we purchased the property at 1111 Fayette Street. That's not captured in these calculations because they're offshoots of your general fund operating budget. So as you can see from the chart, our revenues have exceeded our expenditures annually by an average of $4 million. And we've been able to utilize these excess revenues to complete all the capital projects that you hear about on an annual basis. We've built reserve funds, we've grown our capital assets, and most importantly, we've been able to offer valuable quality services to all constituents in the borough and continue to expand the services we provide on an annual basis, all while keeping your taxes low. And this information is important because the data is utilized to help generate the next year's fiscal budget. So charting our annual revenues over expenditures is also important because it very clearly provides a visual that illustrates the borough's financial health and its strong financial position. So before I move into an overview of the proposed 2026 budget, we're going to reflect on the accomplishments of 2025 because they highlight the many services that the community receives as a result of their tax dollars. It also exemplifies that the borough works hard on a regular basis to provide quality service to its constituents. So we will start off with our police department. Over the course of 2025, just some highlights. They expanded the detective's office and created a dedicated workspace for the detective sergeant position, which was a new position. They upgraded the in-station health and wellness facility to promote officer health and reduce job injuries. They completed a professional review and updated the department's standard operating procedures, certified the detective division in cell phone forensic examination training, replaced and upfitted the patrol fleet with 2 new hybrid vehicles, installed a new server and updated systems to comply with security requirements, and that was funded through a state grant. They've replaced and maintained essential equipment to ensure officer readiness, strengthened their community policing efforts through a number of active collaborations with community leaders. They participated in the Montgomery County Police Testing Consortium. We hired a new police officer, and we established a list required by civil service. We partnered with the PA State Police to perform traffic safety radar details, hosted a bicycle rodeo, bike safety training, bicycle giveaway event, all at Conshohocken Elementary, so a nice partnership there with our elementary school in Conshohocken. We upgraded key software programs, migrated our video data storage from in-house servers to secure cloud-based storage, so always an emphasis on IT readiness and awareness. And they maintained community outreach through Shop with a Cop, Toys for Tots, Thanksgiving dinner giveaway, coffee and conversation event, the National Night Out event, and the Community Shred event, and a partnership with Garcia. And then they activated and staffed the EOC during planned events and unplanned emergencies. Moving into the fire department. So we did certify a new K9 and handler. Watson's probably the most popular borough staff member we have. I'm sorry he's not here tonight, but we maintained our water rescue team, their Swift Water 1A certification from the state. They continued high water vehicle rescue, boat operator training. They put a new water rescue boat into service. The K9 vehicle and the new Chiefs vehicle was put into service. They hosted multiple community events, including sprinkler nights, smoke detector giveaway night, and the annual Colonial Fire Prevention Expo. They equipped part-time firefighters with EMT paramedic experience. They trained borough staff in first aid, CPR, and stop the bleed techniques. They continued the QRS program in conjunction with Narber Ambulance. They attended traffic incident management safety training, and they updated their standard operating guidelines. And there he is again. I put him in at the end just to, warm and fuzzies. Emergency management. So they continued training for all emergency management personnel. They utilized the Code Red to keep residents informed. The drone team assisted in numerous recovery missions along the river, with fires and many other mutual aid events. They utilized the radio dispatch center for communication during special events and storm responses. They acquired and trained all the staff on mobile vehicle barricade units, attended monthly county emergency management trainings, safely orchestrated 2 building evacuations, and they pre-planned 2 new borough events, the 175th anniversary event and the Flyers Alumni Walk and Ride. So there's a lot of work that goes into pre-planning from an emergency management perspective, each of those events. Just giving you kind of a snapshot of what we see from our end going into what those events we can offer to the community that are fun. Licensing and inspections. Our fire captain received the commercial building inspector certification. The property maintenance inspectors and commercial building inspector received FAA unmanned. Liliana's just trying to throw me off my game over here. Property maintenance inspectors and the commercial building inspector received FAA unmanned aircraft remote pilot certifications. All members of the department achieved new certifications from the International Code Council. The commercial building inspector became an ICC master code professional, and that is someone who's in-house on staff. And then our property maintenance was handled proactively to increase enforcement and prevent issues. Moving into public services. So public services is made up of 5 different divisions. You have buildings, sanitation, streets, parks, and stormwater. Our buildings division, they updated the admin building access control with new security systems. There was new countertops installed at the community center reception area, new windows installed at the A field. They repainted the exterior of the Marywood Park House. They updated the exterior lighting of the Marywood Park House. They renovated the police department offices, replaced carpet in the hallways and common areas. installed lighting and safety mirrors in the admin garage and throughout the building, and completed regular facility upgrades in all borough-owned facilities. Our sanitation and recycling division adhered to all CDL requirements, scheduled and completed multiple DEP-approved e-waste pickups, installed our new trash cans along Fayette Street, and put a new recycling truck into service that was given to us through a grant, the DEP. The streets division continued to use the street sweeper to clean and maintain our roadways. They completed the upgrade of street signs and topper signs. They utilized the mastic machine and milling attachment to fill potholes and repair streets. They utilized the Violytic software. It's a new software we're utilizing. Just a snapshot of that is on the screen. We're always looking for ways to be more efficient and utilize our resources in the best way possible. We repainted crosswalks for better visibility and safety, and completed evaluations and repairs for roadways. Our Parks Division completed work at the Weinman Pocket Park. It is almost done. I'm saying completed because we're going to get there by the end of the year. We will do a grand opening of that pocket park in spring of 2026, so stay tuned. We completed construction of the Anita Barton Pocket Park. We updated swings and other playground equipment and added the park sign boards for borough messaging. And then our Stormwater Division, so they are busy throughout the borough repairing inlets, manholes, replacing inlet tops and grates, utilizing excavators and other resources that council has provided to them through our capital budget to maintain stormwater basins. And they did a real big tree removal in order to maintain the integrity of the basin behind Haynes and Salvati. Moving into recreation. So there's a lot to choose from for recreation, so we picked kind of the compilation the best that we could. But they hired a new recreation coordinator. They installed new windows at the A Field House. They installed new bike racks at all parks because we are a walkable and bike-friendly community. They purchased and installed a new inclusive communication board at Marywood Park. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. Continued facility upgrades to the community center. A storage room at the community center was constructed. We offered a casino bus trip that was very successful. Continued in-house and group fitness classes, increased department programming and offerings for all ages. Up there is a picture of our summer camp. I want to be there. That looks like fun. But we operated a successful in-house summer day camp, adding 10 more spots in terms of registration this year. It continues to grow. We also offered weekly summer, specialty summer camps that did run this year and were very popular. We offered in-house after-school program to support students and families of Conshohocken Elementary. So that happens after school from Conshohocken Elementary. They come to the community center. We offered a 3-on-3 basketball league at Sutcliffe Park in partnership with the Moore Brothers. Offered yoga in the parks with Yoga Home for all ages and skill levels. We offered golf, baseball, multi-sport programs through Skyhawk Sports Academy. Developed a partnership with Penn on Second. They actually offer classes at the Conshohocken location. That's a partnership with the borough. Continued a relationship with the Colonial Soccer Club, Conchi baseball and softball, Special Olympics, the Girl Scout troops, Boy Scout troops. We partnered with Heyday Athletics to provide a comprehensive and inclusive co-ed young adult/sport programs for Conshohocken residents. They participated in toy drives, coat giveaways, clothing drives, maintained park pavilions throughout the year and rentals. They're working directly with the Conshohocken Art League, so they're offering art programming in the community center through the recreation department, and those classes have actually gotten more traction. Worked closely with sponsors, so we are very grateful for all of our sponsors that help sponsor all of these community events that are free. The Great American Pub, Flanagan's Boathouse, Pepperoncini, Tataro's, Tony and Joe's, Pieri Catering, the list goes on, but everything that Lauren and her team does wouldn't be possible without those partnerships directly in our community. And then they hosted numerous special events. So we have American Red Cross blood drives, the Donofrio High School basketball tournament, Easter egg hunt, the George Sneer girls basketball tournament, the infant CPR classes, family bingo night, a health and wellness fair, movies in the park, pumpkin painting, a senior barbecue, senior Thanksgiving luncheon, a senior holiday luncheon, and our upcoming Winter Wonderland event that will happen in December. So very busy year for recreation services. Administrative services. So we are required to complete numerous financial audits over the course of the fiscal year. I am happy to say that they are all complete, and they've all been completed and posted, and they are done well. We maintained our ACA compliance, completed safety committee recertification for our insurance and workers' comp, hosted wellness clinics for employees, organized and maintained the borough's capital asset list, which continues to grow, and attended numerous conferences like the Divot Trust Conference, the Pennsylvania Municipal League Conference, and the Pelleras Conference, making sure we're staying up to date with all the latest labor laws and employment practices. Zoning completed over 30 zoning conditional use and relief extension hearings, so Brittany and Allison have been very busy this year. Updated zoning processing procedures, and they continue to track and process enforcement of properties in violation of borough individual zoning districts and the floodplain conservation district. And I'm happy to report that we've also have had traction and interest in the Fayette Street overlay. So we've had, our zoning officer has sat in and conducted numerous meetings with entities that are interested in taking advantage of the overlay. So we're hoping that that picks up, but definitely an accomplishment from 2025. Community development and grants. So we actually completed 9 curb ramp projects this year, and that is strictly using CDBG grant funding, so not out of the borough's budget. We also completed the Sutcliffe Trail total trail reconstruction project, and we actually received 2 grants for that project and are in the process of closing both of them out. And it looks awesome if you haven't gone down and seen it. She also completed, Chris Stetler also completed 8 housing rehab projects using CDBG and home funds. We had DCED monitoring of contracts from 2013 through 2020, which was completed with no findings. We had monitoring for fair housing and equal opportunity employment for fiscal year 2023 with no findings. We applied for and expended the Bulletproof Vest Partnership funds, completed the LSA grant for the purchase of a new police hybrid vehicle, and then completed the 902 recycling truck program grant for the purchase of a new recycling truck. That was actually a program that started in 2023. Because of manufacturing issues, we finally received the truck in 2025. So we will be back in front of you because we are going to have to supplementally appropriate the funds that were earmarked in 2023 for 2025, but you'll get, it's $250,000, you'll get $225,000 back from the grant. And then we applied for and made the following approved and pending grants on behalf of the borough. So in 2025, we were awarded a $451,000 grant for the road program on Harry Street. And then we have roughly $5 million worth of pending grant applications that we're waiting to hear back on whether we're awarded or not. We have 3 grants out for the road diet program that are $1 million or in excess. We have a Hollowell Road program grant that is out for $733,000, a Greenways Trails and Recreation grant in the amount of $250,000, an Arley Mast Arm grant for 2nd Avenue in $287,000, and then a CDBG program grant in the amount of $150,000. So again, $451,000 in 2025, roughly $5 million in grant applications that are pending. And then if you look at your 9-year overall approved grant total, it comes out to roughly $16.5 million. Moving on to communications and special events. Last but not least, we hosted the borough's 175th anniversary event, which was a huge success. We hosted the largest fun fest in the event's history. We produced a public service announcement about bike safety on the trail, and when I say we, I mean Shauna and Paul. We created an interactive map of the borough and its businesses through MapMe. Paul was here recently demonstrating the map in a public meeting. We collaborated with NEF to grow the borough's social media presence, created the borough's YouTube channel, live streamed the borough's meetings on the YouTube channel, produced 2 borough newsletters, and then coordinated, planned, and organized all facets of all borough special events and annual community special events. And then assessed and approved photography and videography needs for those events to ensure that we can capture how successful they are. So again, the accomplishments are just an overview of our operations from 2025. We ask all of our directors to basically assess their year and pull out the highlights that they feel should be recognized. And so that's their work that we are presenting to you this evening. So I just want to thank all of the borough staff for their hard work and our elected officials, all the guidance and direction that gets us to all of those accomplishments from 2025. And then I'd also like to just thank the entire borough community. So it's through your efforts that Conshohocken was named one of the best overall places to live in the state of Pennsylvania. And the way we look at it is that our entire community, made up of borough residents, our businesses, our community groups, our visitors, borough council, the mayor, borough administration, all those entities and parties, they all contribute to making Conshohocken Borough the premier destination to live, work, play, and grow. Yes, Mike, I'm leaving it at grow for tonight. So I feel like the accomplishments and highlights over the course of this year illustrates that the tax dollars are being put to good use. We are all immensely proud to be members of the borough family and a member of this borough team, and we are immensely hopeful as we look towards the future and when I present the proposed 2026 budget. We will continue to serve Conshohocken and assess how we can collectively build a better future for generations to come. So that's a recap of 2025. So let's shift gears and move into the proposed 2026 budget. And to really understand the budget, you start with your revenue sources. And those primary revenue sources are your taxes and your fund balance. And we draw upon real estate tax, your real estate transfer tax, your earned income tax, your local services tax, mercantile tax, business privilege tax, and then your fund balance. So let's talk about real estate taxes briefly. So we're going to pull real estate out of those other tax sources because that's the main source of revenue that directly affects the residents of Conshohocken. The borough's overall annual revenues, minus the utilization of fund balance, is estimated at roughly $19.6 million. Only $2.6 million of the $19.6 million comes from the residents' pockets from real estate tax. So that's roughly 13.2% of the borough's budget. That means that 86.8% of the annual income is generated through commerce, businesses, and grants. In other words, residents get to enjoy daily everything that makes the borough special without bearing the financial burden for all the services, amenities, facilities, safety measures, and special events. And we think that's an important factor to point out. And then just a visual of how that's broken down. So you'll see in the orange, that's your earned income tax. If you pull just your tax base out of your revenues in your general fund, forget all your other revenue sources, your earned income tax makes up roughly 46%, or $7.5 million. Your mercantile tax is 2%, $375,000. Your business privilege is 25%, or $4.1 million. Your LST is 2% at $390,000. Your fund balance is at 4%, $643,000. You have prior delinquent interim taxes, which are a really small tax proportion. Your real estate transfer tax is about 2%, or $400,000. And then you have your real estate taxes at $2.6 million, or roughly 17%. So what does that mean? So we know now that what real estate taxes mean to a borough resident. and what proportion of that real estate makes up the borough's revenue sources. I'm going to take a second to provide just a brief explanation to illustrate how we put your tax dollars to work. So when we talk about real estate taxes, we're talking about millage. And I'm going to go further into millage on this slide, but to just explain how we get to the numbers that are on that slide, millage is based on the assessed value of a property. We're not talking about market value of a home. We're talking about an assessed value of a home. So for example, the Conshohocken gross property assessed value in 2025 was estimated at $796 million. If we factor in that the total Conshohocken taxable parcels in 2025 is estimated around 3,651, give or take, and that includes both commercial and residential, you can calculate what the median assessed home value is for the borough, understanding that it's going to be slightly on the higher side because you're factoring in both commercial apartment facilities and residential properties. But for tonight's explanation, we're just going to say that the median assessed home value in Conshohocken is roughly $218,000 or $200,000. And then you can utilize that number to go into an example. So real estate taxes, how do we explain that? How does that work? Where do your tax dollars go? The millage rate is the rate amount per 1,000 used to calculate taxes on a property. So 1 mil represents $1 in taxes per 1,000 in tax assessed value, and that's where I'm going back to that $200,000 value. So if you consider that a home's assessed value is $200,000, then for simplicity purposes, 1 mil of tax would equal $200. The borough's total millage rate in 2025 was 36.637 mils. So in this example, the homeowner owes 36.637 in taxes for every 1,000 in tax assessed value, and that amounts to $7,327.40 in property taxes. So how do you get that total millage rate? Where does that 36.637 come from? It's broken out into 4 different entities. So you have 2025 county millage, which was at 5.252, the Montgomery County Community College millage, which was at 0.39, the borough millage in 2025 was 4.5, and then the Colonial School District millage was 26.495. So when you add up all of those 4 numbers, that's where you get your total millage at 36.637. And that's what every resident in the Borough of Conshohocken is obligated to pay in real estate tax. So let's put it all together. So if this particular homeowner owes $7,327 in total annual property taxes, what is the amount owed to each of those entities? So the amount owed to the borough annually is $900. That's what they owe to the Borough of Conshohocken. Everything we just talked about from 2025 and everything that we're going to talk about 2026, that's the amount you owe annually. You owe to the county $1,050.40. To the community college, you owe $78. And then to the school district, you owe $5,299. Just breaking it into a chart so that you can see it as from a visual perspective. So again, the large purple portion is the Colonial School District at 26 mils or 72.32% of your property real estate taxes. Montgomery County is 14.34% or 5.252. The community college is at roughly 1%, 0.39. And then the Borough of Conshohocken is at 4.5 or 12.28%. So what does this breakdown mean for a borough resident? So basically, if we refer back to that previous example, this particular property owner owes $900 a year or $75 a month to the borough. And what services do you get for $75 a month? You get trash removal, recycling, snow plow, snow removal, upgraded, new, maintained parks and playgrounds, pocket parks, 24/7 police protection, fire protection, emergency services, library services, licensing and inspections enforcement, permitting, property maintenance, park programming, recreational programming, day camps, after-school programs, road improvements, a community cab and shuttle service, a community center, and access to a plethora of free special events, to name just a few services you get for your money, your $900 a year or your $75 a month. It's not a bad deal. So now that we know what the tax dollars mean for a resident, let's shift gears again to how tax revenue, specifically real estate taxes, relates to the budget itself. So you look at the total assessed estimated value for 2026. That's estimated at $823 million. If your total millage, which we're not proposing an increase, stays at 4.5, then your total estimated property tax revenue for 2026 is roughly $3.7 million. You have to account for penalties, delinquents, and discounts. So the real estate tax to be collected, which is included in your 2026 budget, is $3,605,024. So we take that $3.6 million and then we divvy it up into operating funds. And our operating funds consist of general, streetlight, debt service, fire, library, and a road fund. We then assess a levy to each of those operating funds, which is basically just taking the 4.5 mils and divvying it up into a percentage into what we need in order to fund each of those areas of operation. And then you generate the revenue that's associated with that tax levy. So our general fund, which is our general operating fund, which basically everything comes out of your day-to-day operations, receives $2,682,378. That's the percentage of your real estate tax that goes to your general fund. Your streetlight gets $98,000. Your debt service fund receives $560,000. Your fire protection gets $100,460. Library gets $66,973. And then your road fund, which is there to supplement your highway aid or liquid fuels fund, gets $96,294. And that totals your $3,605,024 in real estate taxes. So now that we have a better understanding of tax revenue and how those tax revenue dollars are utilized and what those tax dollars mean to a borough resident, we're going to move into the 2026 proposed budget. Most importantly, what we are proposing tonight is a balanced budget with revenues and expenditures totaling $20,264,970. That does factor in fund balance on the revenue side and interfund transfers to reserve funds on the expenditure side. Let's do a further breakdown. Your operating revenues. So this is now all your revenues, not just your tax base. We're looking at real property taxes and everything else that comes along with your revenue sources. So again, your real property taxes, now that you've proportioned into other revenue sources, dips slightly lower to 13.83% or $2.8 million. Your local tax enabling act is at 63% or $12.7 million. Licensing and permits is 3.41% or $690,000. Fines and forfeits is at 0.75% or $152,000. Interest rents and royalties are at $902,000 or 4.45%. Intergovernmental revenues are 6.44% or $1.3 million. Departmental charges for services specifically are at 4.54% or $919,000. Unclassified revenues are 0.41% or $83,000. And then last but not least is your fund equity, which is your non-operating revenue, which is at 3% of your revenues or $643,000. So that is a breakdown of each category of revenue that exists in your general fund in your 2026 budget. And then moving into your expenditures in your general fund. So your general government expenditures make up 17% or $3.4 million. Your police services expenditures make up 36.94% of your budget, or roughly 7.5 million. Fire and emergency services is 6.4%, or 1.3 million. Licensing and inspections, 4.74%, 961,000. Public services, buildings, sanitation, streets, and parks is 19.5%, almost 4 million. Culture and recreation makes up 5.91%, or almost 1.2 million. You have other expenditures at 1.41%, or 286,000. And then again, your interfund transfers to reserve funds, specifically OPEB, which is your post-employment benefit fund, trust, and your capital reserve fund at 4.93%, or 1 million. And then stormwater is basically still in its infant area of development, so we're still pulling that out so we can evaluate it specifically. So on this chart, it's 2.96%, or roughly 600,000 of your operating revenues. It's important to note that the overall increase from 25 to 26 is 4.55%, with the majority of the increase coming from contractual obligations, pension requirements, healthcare costs, and personnel costs associated with meeting the quality service standards that's expected of the borough administration. We do look at industry averages. An industry average budget increase is roughly 4.5% in a static environment. The borough, however, is still not in a static environment. We're still continuing to grow. We're still continuing to evaluate our operations to ensure we're meeting service requirements of increased population. But nevertheless, our proposed 2026 budget falls within that industry standard range. And our normal budget operating policy as it pertains to budgetary increases, market trends, and incorporating service and operational growth without the need for a tax increase. As you heard in September, we're going to continue to evaluate our growth needs for the future. We'll apply applicable expenditures in future budgets to continue to meet the needs of the borough while we continue to experience growth. And I would just like to thank the Borough Council and Mayor. There's a lot of strategy and a lot of strategic decision-making that goes into every aspect and every decision and every long-term plan that you make. And you've positioned yourself, as you can see in the budget, you've positioned the borough in a capacity to fully absorb operational increases without having to financially burden the borough residents with a tax increase. And I think that that gets lost over the course of the year. You heard a lot about growth and the future needs and capacities at your September budget meeting, and those are included in this budget, and what we're presenting is a budget with no tax increase, and that's something that I think you should all be very proud of. Okay, and then finally we break down expenditures into major cost centers. So you can see on the chart that 69.27%, or roughly 14 million, is personnel costs. And I will just further break that down. So if you look at that full 69.27%, your police personnel costs make up 48.7% of that 69.27%. So that is a large percentage out of that 69%, but that is what it is. And then you have 25% in operating expenditures, or 5.2 million, and then again your interfund transfers at 4.93%, or 1 million. And if you look at industry norms in terms of personnel, it roughly makes up 2/3 of the budget. We're within that range of the industry norm, but I do think it's important to kind of break down your personnel, operating, and interfund transfers. Okay, so we've broken down the proposed budget. We've talked about 2025. So how do we justify the proposed costs moving into 2026? We like to look at budget highlights. We like to pull out the main key points in the budget, both the general fund and the capital fund. And then we also like to provide you with a sampling of department goals. So just some department highlights. Again, we've talked about no tax increase proposed. Continued investment into reserve funds, specifically OPEB Trust and the Capital Reserve Fund. And we do this specifically to ensure the financial viability of the borough in the long term. We have a balanced budget presented to you this evening, and then we have a continued investment into public safety. So for the fire services, we have a continued fire stipend program, the construction of the brand new public safety services facility, uniforms, equipment, radios, trucks, appropriations to the volunteer firefighters. For the police, we have police vehicles, IT and software upgrades and protection, facility upgrades and updates, traffic safety equipment, officer safety equipment. For emergency services, we have investments in vehicle barriers, cameras, radios, firearm detection software, and IT updates, all things that we continue to try to stay on the forefront to keep our residents and businesses safe. And then a continued appropriation to Narberth Ambulance. In terms of an continued investment into recreation services, this is all about quality of life. So we have facility upgrades for new lighting at the A field and the B field, which are heavily utilized. Renovations at the community center, which is basically maxed out in terms of utilization. Park pavilion upgrades. Our park pavilion rentals are in high demand. And then playground safety and safety service upgrades. So we're in a cycle now with our parks and our playgrounds where we're getting into a 10-year cycle. So we're continuing to monitor and update so we can maintain the integrity of those beautiful playgrounds that we have in the borough. You have a continued investment into the Conshohocken Cab, the shuttle program, and NEF marketing. And then you have a continued investment into pocket parks, open space, and the borough's Main Street corridor. So 2nd Avenue Veterans Plaza project is in your budget, the finalization and completion of the Wyman Pocket Park, future public services safety facility, 2nd Avenue Mast Arm, potential road diet program. These are all costs that are built into your 2026 budget. We have matching funds that are allocated for grants and capital engineering and traffic engineering projects. We have additional debt service that is budgeted for to generate financing for major capital projects like the construction of the Public Safety Services Facility, the construction of the 2nd Avenue Veterans Memorial Plaza, the road diet, and road and infrastructure projects. And then we continue to constantly assess the services we are able to provide to our constituents, businesses, and visitors. And we look at our population increase over the course of the next 12 to 18 months, and we are ensuring in this budget that we can provide the same level of quality services to our constituents, businesses, and visitors, which they have become accustomed to. So those are just some highlights. And then I'm going to zip through some departmental goals for 2026. We always like to set SMART goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. For the police, built into your 2026 budget. So these are all goals that have dollars associated with them. We are going to construct new emergency stairs and replace damaged fence to improve building safety security, improve functionality and storage in the department break room, replace 7 ballistic vests and apply for grant funding, replace and upfit the vehicle fleet with 3 new vehicles, replace 6 aging in-car laptops, replace 6 outdated Windows 10 workstations, maintain proper equipment levels and readiness, continue partnerships with local agencies to promote and enforce department's traffic safety initiatives, conduct emergency management tabletop exercise to test and train incident leaders in emergency response, and continue to work actively with community leaders and members in a collaborative community policing effort while exploring new options for assisting residents in need. Moving into the fire department, acquire and implement new sonar system for water searches, complete repairs and upgrades to the high water vehicle, educate and train new hires. We just finalized the civil service process for fire services, and train current and new employees on building structures, layouts, and construction sites. Continue EMS training, train regularly with mutual aid fire departments, and of course we have the architecture, the site work, the financing, and the bidding of the Public Safety Services facility, which will house both fire and EMS as an initiative for 2026. Emergency management will continue to safely oversee community events, evaluate them, and make changes or updates to the safety plans as needed. Complete a tabletop exercise for emergency management personnel and elected officials. Install and utilize new firearm detection software on all borough cameras for increased public safety and faster response. Acquire additional vehicle safety barriers and upgrade the radio setup in the EOC. Licensing and inspections is going to continue to educate the public on common property maintenance code violations and increase enforcement of such codes. Review and assist with permitting throughout completion of new development projects, and finish these projects with little disruption as possible, and continue the professional development. Public services, the buildings division will continue to examine facilities for future capital needs, consolidate contractor agreements as needed, replace carpeting in different departments, complete multiple projects that are scheduled with the community center and the police department, establish a comprehensive maintenance plan for Conshohocken Fire Station 55A, continue to evaluate repaint interiors of all facilities, winter maintenance procedures for all properties, and continue to enhance fall and winter decorations throughout the borough and specifically Marywood Park. Sanitation and recycling division, so they'll evaluate needs to add additional trash receptacles in public spaces and during events, and continue to utilize Violetic software to evaluate and repair roadways and signage for our streets division, work with the borough engineer to address continued traffic and safety issues on roadways throughout the borough. Parks division, so they'll continue to evaluate park green space with 9 consecutive years of spring and fall tree plantings. Complete the Veterans Memorial Plaza project on West 2nd Avenue, and complete work on field irrigation systems on our fields because they are so highly utilized. And then our stormwater division, because we have invested so much in bike safety, we're looking at installing bike safety replacement for inlet tops and grates, continue to maintain the Haynes and Savati Basin, complete pipelining to reinforce any eroding drain pipe system, and important to note that that is in conjunction with the owner of the stormwater system, which is the sewer authority, and then utilize a vacuum service to remove large blockage. The recreation department, so they have facility upgrades scheduled, new gym lighting, and office extension for staff as they continue to expand their offerings, kitchen renovation, new lighting at the A Field, B Field, new pavilions at Sutcliffe Park, new safety surfacing at Sutcliffe Park Playground, epoxy floor kits for locker rooms and kitchen floors, and restrooms at our parks and our community center. Improve and expand programs specifically for teens and seniors, so that was emphasis placed on that for 2026, and then evaluate and assess departmental staffing needs. Administrative services will continue focusing on safety and wellness training, continue to provide employee trainings through Divot, and organize department files and archive room records, maintaining compliance with the PA Municipal Records Manual regulations. Zoning will process zoning applications and conduct zoning hearings as required, continue to evaluate the zoning ordinance to meet the current needs of the community, and collaborate with L&I to monitor and enforce zoning compliance as applicable. Community development and grants. So we plan to hopefully complete 4 to 5 housing rehab projects, again with grant funds, close out the 2019 home grant, the 2021 and 2023 CDBG grants and contracts, close out the PCCD contract, and then prepare additional grant applications for applicable opportunities and or monitor the grant applications. As we indicated, we have about $5 million worth of grant applications out, so if they're received, then they'll have to manage and monitor those funds. And then in terms of communication and special events, so we will continue to assess special event operations and find areas for potential growth. Improve the look and visibility of the web pages on the borough website, so that process is underway now, and then evaluate future website needs, and then continue to develop and strengthen relationships with Conshohocken business owners through our community affairs. So that's a lot of information. But we do believe that the budget highlights and the 2026 departmental goals presented this evening provide justification for the operating and capital dollars we are proposing to spend in 2026. More importantly, we believe this budget encompasses all the community feedback received over the course of the year and incorporates additions and needs that the community expressed as important initiatives to fund in the 2026 budget. So what happens now? On November 19th, we will consider authorization to advertise. That'll be placed on your agenda. If that is approved, then the budget will be posted in the lobby of Borough Hall and will be posted on the Borough website. Public notices and the tax levy ordinance will be advertised as applicable, and then it will be on your agenda for consideration for adoption at your December 17th regular scheduled council meeting. And it's important to note that the budget is advertised on an annual basis prior to our elected officials considering adoption, because it is the community who approves the budget every fiscal cycle. Therefore, we really do urge you to utilize this period of time between November and December to provide any feedback, pose any questions, so that we can ensure that the borough's annual budget accurately reflects the needs of our community. And last but not least, I would just like to conclude by stating that we as administrators are honored to serve the Borough of Conshohocken. Not just the elected officials, but the residents, the business owners, the community groups, everybody we work with on a regular basis. It's my hope that this budget presentation illustrates how the borough strategically puts our investments, development, commerce, and grants to work so there is as little as possible financial burden on the residents that live in Conshohocken. It's our belief that the borough will continue to evolve forward through this proposed 2026 budget, along with the collaboration from all facets of our community. The borough's budget ultimately is the vehicle which ensures that all community goals and priorities are achieved. And it really does lay the foundation which enables our team to enhance the quality of life for everyone in Conshohocken. So at this point, I will just pause to see if council or the mayor or anyone has any questions or concerns or comments on any information that was presented this evening.
Steph, I'd just like to say thank you to you and your team for putting together that comprehensive overview. We take for granted what happens here every day because we're in the thick of it. But when you actually take a step back and look at all that we've done as a group and all that you've done to organize to get us where we are, it's something to be very proud of. So I would say thank you to you and your team for making that happen.
We're happy to do it.
From the presentation perspective, I actually appreciated all of the graphs that you used as visuals, because sometimes I think looking at just numbers, you don't actually see where everything kind of lines up. So I think adding the graphs and visuals will also help the public when they're reviewing the budget. So thank you.
You're welcome. And those graphs are actually put into the final budget narrative document, so that goes up on the website. So if you need the visuals, they're not just in this presentation, which you can also always access. But if you don't want to listen to me talk for an hour again, you can access the narrative document, which will be on the website, and the graphs will be listed in there as well.
Anyone else from council have any comments or feedback?
No.
Okay, then I'm just going to end it with thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration of the 2026 proposed budget. It's an honor to work diligently every day to make Conshohocken the premier place to live, work, play, and grow. I got it in there one more time. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to take a minute and see if there's any public comment on the budget. Brittany, I don't know if anything's come in while we were speaking. Okay. So at this time, I would open it up to anyone in the audience that would have any comment, questions, concerns about the budget presented. Okay. Hearing no concerns or questions, what I'm going to do is adjourn this section of the meeting. We'll break for a quick 4 minutes, and then we'll come back and continue with the regularly scheduled meeting. Meeting adjourned.